news. The U.S. Department of Justice has just released the special counsel's report on President Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. Now, you'll remember, these were the documents found at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C., and also at the president's home in Delaware. Earlier today, the White House declined to assert executive privilege over any of this report, and that's why we have it in our hands now. We want to go straight to our Caitlin Polantz, who's been reading through it. And Caitlin, I mean, from the few lines that I've seen, this is quite a bombshell for the Biden administration.
It is, Paula. The finding here after a year-long investigation by the special counsel, so a prosecutor looking at possible criminal charges for the Justice Department with a little bit of distance from the administration itself, someone with a level of independence, found evidence that Joe Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after he left the vice presidency during the Obama years of the presidency. Now, there's a big but here. The but is there are no criminal charges being filed here. Special counsel Rob Hur found that there should not be criminal charges, that even if department policy at the Department of Justice said you can't indict a sitting president, which Joe Biden is currently, and that is the department policy, they still wouldn't be bringing charges. The reason for that are many different mitigating factors, specifically pointing out that Joe Biden had a failing memory about some of these things. And even if he was willfully retaining and disclosing classified information, especially about Afghanistan, the Afghanistan military, foreign policy, as well as handwritten notebooks he kept from his vice presidency, even though he shared them at some point with a ghostwriter he was working with on a memoir, it was not enough to convince a jury that there was guilt on his mind or that he willfully wanted to keep these things in violation of the law.
Yeah, still absolutely stunning in terms of the language that was used here. And Caitlin, I know how closely you followed this. I just want to remind the audience that President Biden was interviewed for 2 days by the special counsel. That was last October. I mean, how do you think that played into what we see today in terms of the results of this investigation?
Paula, the special counsel Rob Hur in this report, it's more than 300 pages long. He points that out as one of the mitigating factors here, one of the reasons that factored into what a jury may believe here or see here if they were to see the evidence, and also what he was looking at, that Joe Biden was cooperative with this investigation, sitting for interviews. He also turned the documents back over to the Justice Department once they were found. And special counsel Rob Hur especially goes through exactly how this is different from the case against Donald Trump, the case that has been charged in criminal court and is headed toward a trial. The difference here, where Donald Trump is accused of keeping records at his estate Mar-a-Lago in Florida after his presidency, is that in that case, they have found evidence of the obstruction of justice, a refusal of Donald Trump to return documents, and his wish that witnesses in that case would lie to federal authorities.
Yeah, and we should remind people as well that former Vice President Pence also faced an investigation. He was cleared of any wrongdoing, I guess it was June last year. And Caitlin, just before I let you go, can you remind us where we at right now with the Trump case in terms of the documents case now?
We are in that case still, Paula. It is on the calendar for May to go to trial. There is a big hearing coming up at the beginning of March in it. But what is happening right now is both sides are picking through the evidence. And there's a lot of classified material in that evidence against Donald Trump that the defense team is looking at. They're trying to get some of it thrown out. They're trying to get parts of the case dismissed or the entire case dismissed. And they also are before a judge with a lot of proceedings happening confidentially. Under seal is what they say in court. All of these proceedings are happening under seal because the case involves so much classified material here. They have to be very careful with it because of national security reasons. Paula?
Okay, Caitlin Polantz, really appreciate you getting that to us quickly. We want to go now to CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson and Norm Eisen, who both join me. Norm, I'm going to go to you first on the case itself. I mean, okay, you say the logical thing, relief from the White House that there aren't any charges. But my gosh, the language in this is absolutely startling when you think about it as a former vice president who was in office for a very long time and now a sitting president.
Yes, it's strong language. That's appropriate. no matter who you are, if you are handling our nation's classified secrets, you have to do so with care. And the current president could have done better with that. But let's note the important distinction here. No evidence of intentional wrongdoing, not enough evidence to establish a criminal prosecution, whereas in the case of the former president, Donald Trump, you not only have the mishandling, you have evidence that he was intentionally mishandling documents. And instead of cooperating as President Biden did, former President Trump allegedly obstructed justice, interfered with the investigation. So these two cases are apples and oranges, but that does not mean that Joe Biden did the right thing. He did not.
Yeah, it certainly seems from what the special counsel was saying that the best case would be that he was being careless. Now, that does not jive with the words willful. Joey, do you believe that President Biden, served himself well by agreeing to cooperate with this investigation? Again, it was 2 days with the special counsel.
So, Paul, I do. I think it's very important, right? It goes to the issue of intent. It goes to the issue of criminality. It goes to the issue of putting things in context. In this world, we have context and we have perspective. And when you can sit and give your perspective in terms of mishaps that you made, it makes a big difference. It's what we lawyers call mitigating circumstances. And so when you cooperate fully and completely, when you indicate that you had no ill intent, when you don't instruct other witnesses to cover or otherwise lie for you, it makes a difference in terms of what prosecutors are going to do and what they did do in this case. The issue then becomes, Paula, how it's going to be received politically. Obviously, the former president is going to say, aha, you see, it's a gross distinction. I'm treated differently. They prosecute me. They don't prosecute Joe Biden. Look at Joe Biden. Well, get ready for it. In addition to that, his allies will do it. As Norm said, and I do agree, it's apples and oranges in so many regards. But people who don't follow the niceties and the fine distinctions are not going to see it that way. And this is going to be political fodder for those who are the enemies of Biden in a campaign to say that the Justice Department is bought and paid for, and there's people who engage in similar conduct. It's not, but are being treated, dissimilarly. And that's what's going to come for sure and soon.
And now, Norm, the question I would have, and it's a question of privilege, and I'm not talking about the legal kind. If you were a government employee working in any department in Washington or beyond, and you did this, some may believe that the president, former vice president, has been treated differently because they will assume that if you were sitting there and you were an official in the transportation department, let's say, and you were found guilty of this, the charges would be laid against you.
I understand those who will ask those questions, and certainly President Biden's political opponent, former President Trump, will say so, but that's just not right. I make that judgment based on having held our nation's highest security clearances myself as United States ambassador, and having been, when I was in the White House counsel lead on Executive Order 13526, which governs the handling of these documents. If others had inadvertently, or as the special counsel himself, a Trump appointee, Robert Hur, as he said, at best, a case for careless, negligent handling. That's not right, but that doesn't establish criminality. That and the full cooperation would lead to this kind of a reprimand that we do see in this extensive special counsel report, but no one else would be prosecuted for this either if it was inadvertent.